Okay, so this is supposed to be the second part of our discussion. A lot of commentators on Hegel are also saying that we cannot understand history, let alone the linear progression of history, especially of philosophical ideas, without understanding Hegel first. So, uh, might be difficult at first to know, but to understand, especially from he's starting from a metaphysical idea, but at least perhaps we can simplify it a little bit if we use Marx's material expression of the dialectic to explain the Hegelian uh, progression in history. No, so it's still quite useful. So the early Marx is already talking about uh, the notion that if you have a kind of if you're a consciousness that has come up with a definite idea of what you truly are, and it's just a matter of self-actualizing or self-realizing what you are in history. But many modern philosophers would still start on the idea that human beings are generally higher or the highest form of animals, with reason or having the faculty of reason. So in that sense, uh, even the great philosophers of antiquity, the Greeks, and even Kant, would even talk about human beings as uh, a dignified being, and that's the reason why Kant also has this humanity principle that you ought to treat fellow humans as ends in themselves and not as a means. And Marx would pretty much look at humans, especially human labor, with dignity, or the way he uh, and so if you're going to start from the standpoint of Marx, if you are a human being, a dignified being, if that's your thesis, and you have dignified labor also, your experience in the modern world, though, if you are a modern worker in the laboring class, is one that is antithetical to your original idea of dignified man and dignified labor, because you are placed in a situation uh, that alienates you, and in that you are moving further and further away from self-realization, because you cannot go back to your uh, realizing yourself as a dignified being. And so being an agent of change, you need to find ways to solve that problem. And according to Marx, you can probably do it by understanding the progression of history. If you, because you're already looking at the tension between your original self and the self that is being constructed and manipulated uh, in modern political and economic situation. So what you do is to go back to the self, and perhaps employ some ideas that would help you to come back to that original notion of the self, which is a dignified one. And and that's the reason why he has a complaint on Hegel's idea of modern society, because uh, you cannot find a synthesis within that uh, situation. So what you're going to do now is to try to understand first before going through that dialectic. Then uh, try to understand first what are the reasons why, or what are the material and political conditions that placed you in that situation, uh, of alienation from your true self. That is, first one is that you are immediately separated from the product of your labor. So the product that you help create, uh, if you're a modern laborer, you have no capacity to either own or control that product, which can be owned by the capitalist. Second, as an immediate producer, you are separated from your productive activity because you are placed in a debilitating situation, which is debilitating mentally and physically. There are many manifestations, perhaps here in modern society, like in the third world, for instance. You're even in modern companies, for instance, we're in call center, wherein you are, if you are new to that company, then they put you in shifts or in situations, in overtime, and not to mention very low salary. If you, for example, if you take a look at the situation of call center operators in the Philippines, they earn 10 times less than those in abroad. So third, immediate producers are separated from other individuals, and especially from the rich people. So rich kids are pretty much separated from uh, from the kids, no, that whose parents perhaps are belong to the other class and the working class, if you want. No? So they have other material goods, especially in fashion, for instance, or in technology, in gadgets, or even in the kinds of cars that they bring to school. Fourth and finally, immediate producers are separate from their own human nature, and this is related to the second one, and this relates to what we have been talking about since the beginning of the second part. Uh, the thesis should be that you are a dignified being and your labor is dignified. And basically, what the fourth kind of alienation is saying is you've moved. Modern society has placed you so far away from the realization of that original thesis of yourself. So if you want just to identify the from Marx's terminologies, the bourgeoisie is the one that owns the means of production, land, labor, and capital. Not to mention they can own you, quote unquote, as a laborer because they basically dictate the number of hours of work and uh, the wages. No, yeah, proletariat would be the class of the modern laborers who experience alienation. I have here an idea of how it might work, but it's always free to revision if you want. This is just an idea. So in order to bring about the situation wherein uh, it says here back to the drawing board, wherein you have now a chance to redistribute the resources. You start from basically a thesis, for instance, that is already existing in modern society, and then you take the antithesis of that in order to bring about the situation that you want. So you have, for example, you have private property already existing and owned by the modern capitalist. Then you introduce something that is antithetical to that, which is the abolition of private property. And then now, if every private property or ownership is abolished, then you have a situation wherein there's a better chance of distributing society's resources and material goods, each to each according to his needs. And the synthesis is basically a new thesis, and we can work out from that perhaps to bring about what we want, like a classless society, because Marx has a big critique on the state. But this is like a rough sketch. If you want, you can have your own, and perhaps a more uh, something that is more faithful to the discussion of Hegel and Marx. You can even start from the thesis itself that the man is a dignified being, and then his condition in modern society with the antithesis, which is private property and the rise of capitalism and bourgeoisie and state conditions and uh, uh, what you call divisions, no, social status, hierarchy, if you want, no, and then you bring about the synthesis, which is basically the abolition of the anything that is antithetical to your idea of dignified labor. So, in other words, the synthesis would be uh, after the abolition of private property, then you have basically a situation wherein uh, there should be justice, and in that condition, wherein you have an equal chance for material and resources, you know, and that will bring back the dignity of you and as a laborer, and you are not now so far away from doctors and engineers and professionals. If you're just a worker, you're no longer merely just a worker, because you basically can own pretty much the same things that everybody from the upper class previously have owned. Okay, or something like that, no? So let's not talk anymore about other things like can you own your own toothbrush or shoes. So sure you can, but we're talking about here about the solution to the alienation part. We're simply interested in that. So even from the early Marx, it says communism, the way he envisions it, is the complete return of man to himself as a social being, a return to accomplish consciously and embracing the entire wealth of previous development. Okay, so he thinks that the communism is the riddle of history resolved, and it knows itself to be its solution. So I'm not going to talk about the examples that I gave in class anymore. Just that's from the live discussion. But I'm going to be just pointing to the main ideas. But hopefully this reviewer, recorded reviewer, will be helpful in preparing you for your examination.